Hello and welcome to this Next.js 13 and Supabase tutorials where we are going to build this car rental website. My name is Shadrach, and if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click on the notification icon so that you don't miss any future videos. So in this video we are going to build this car rental website. It is a platform where you can give out cars for rent for users to come and rent them actually. So we are going to learn a lot by building both the client and server side using Next.js 13. And I have already shown a full demo of how the whole platform works. So if you haven't checked that out already, the link is in the description. So be sure to check that out. Now, I started building this project a few months ago, and since then there has been library updates and changes. So I had to update all the libraries I am using to the latest version so that if you are watching it now, you won't have any issues with different versions of libraries. So for example, I started building this project with Next.js version 13.4. After finishing the project, Next.js was in version 13.5. So I had to update it to the latest version. So at the time of recording, I am using Next.js version 14.0.1. So depending on when you are watching the tutorials, be sure to check out the version of the packages I am using in case you run into any issues. There's also been version changes as well in the components library, in the UI components library I am using, and this affected some styling and layouts, and some of the styles might slightly be different from what you saw in the demo. So these are just UI styles and they are very few. Some of them you can't actually notice the difference. There are also no changes in actual implementations, so it's actually not a big deal. But I feel like the changes in the libraries or the updates have also increased the performance as well, so it's a good thing. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to quickly go over the UI. I'm just going to show you all the different pages and how they look like now. As I said, if you want to see how they work, I've already shown you that in the demo. So if you've not already checked it out, please check it out now. So as you can see, this is how the application looks like. This is the home page, and as you can see, we have the header and everything here. There is a slider here. You can actually select some values here so that it takes you to the car listing page. So if I click on it, it's going to take me to the car listing page, and based on the region I selected, I get the cars available in that region. Alright, so if I change this now, try to search. So this is the car list page. Alright, so yeah, we have some filters. We have the list of cars. You can filter based on price and everything. Alright, and if I click on one of these, it takes me to the details page, but because I've not actually logged in, it's going to show me this, right? So this is also the login page. Now if I log in, this is what I am going to see. So I see this page, and now I have my profile showing up here. Right, so let me just do that again by going to the car listing page. So just choose the dates, so let's search for a car, and when I click on one of these cars, it takes me to the details page. So here I see the car, I see the other images of the car as well, and I see like a description of all the cars as well as if there are reviews. And here, if the car is not booked, as you can see here, the car is booked, so I can book it. So if the car is not booked, I can click on this book and then it will book the car. So this is the car details page, and I can also go to my profile page. So if I click on my profile, yeah, this is how my profile looks like. So I can update my profile here if I want. I can even change the avatar. If I go to the bookings, it is going to show a list of all my bookings. So as you can see, I've made 2 bookings. One was approved, one was rejected. Yeah, so these are my bookings. Yeah. So one thing I didn't really show a lot in the demo is how responsive this website is. Right, so it is very responsive. If I bring the DevTools now and I show you, as you can see on the home page, everything looks fine, everything looks perfect. Now I can go to the car listing page as well, and as you can see, if I change this to a region where I have a lot of cars and do a search, as you can see, it is very responsive. And I can see the hamburger here as well. So if I click on it, here it shows my profile, it shows the light and dark theme here as well. And here I see all the list of cars too. And as you can see, the filter, I can open it from here as well. Alright, so the page is very responsive. If I expand this, as you can see, then I see the filters here now. I can also click on the show map, hide map. So yeah, the page is very responsive. Now if I go to one of the cars, like a details page, and I shrink it, as you can see, this page is also very responsive. Everything looks good. Alright, yeah, so the application is fully responsive, right? So yeah, so this is basically the user page, right? Now if I am a provider, I want to give out a car for rent, I can register or create an account as a provider. So if I create an account as a provider, this is the page I'm going to see instead. Alright, so I'm going to see this page. It's my dashboard. So as you can see, this is the company, and if I go to account settings here, this is the details of the provider. I can click here to log out. I can update the logo, the company logo from here. I can change all the details as well. And this is the dashboard. This is not fetching like real data yet, but when I come to cars, as you can see, these are all the cars I have. And if I click on one of these cars, it shows the bookings for that particular car. So there is just one booking for this particular car. Alright, so from here I can add a new car by clicking here, go through the form, add all the details, and then add a new car. If I want to edit this car, I can also click on this icon, and it's going to show me the details of the car. Can remove some of the images if I don't want. I can change the description, change everything about the car here, and then click on update. Alright, and if I want to delete the car, it's gonna say, do you want to delete this car? I can say yes, I don't want to delete it now. But yeah, here too, it is very responsive. So if I try to shrink it, as you can see, the sidebar is actually gone, and I can see it if I click here. Right? It shows me the sidebar. Right. Yeah, and as you can see, light and dark theme also works very well for all the pages. So one thing you would notice is that now on the provider page we have a different layout in terms of like the header. So as you can see, we have the company, a company name, and then the logo here. Alright, and then if I shrink it, we have the hamburger here. Now if I go to the user, if I show you the user page, as you can see, we have slightly a bit of different layout for the header as well, right? Where if you are logged in, you have your user profile appearing in the middle. This appears at the right side here. There is the cargo rentals, that is the title of the platform here as well, right? And if you are not logged in, just like I showed you earlier, or if you are on the if you're on this page, that is the login or register page, you don't see the login or register buttons, login or sign up buttons. But if I go to home page, you'd see that it appears here, right? Yeah, so these are all different layouts we are going to use Next.js to actually create, and it's going to be very, very cool, right? So you'd see that very surely. So this is how the UI looks like. Alright, so when you're building a website like this or a platform like this, it is important to get like a mental diagram or a mental model of how it looks like. Now, you're not going to get that from the beginning most of the times. You are all the time going to, most of the time you're going to have just the initial idea, and you're going to get a lot of ideas from online and other places. But then once you start building and everything begins to come together, then you'd have a complete application, right? So as I showed you the last time, this is going to be the different part of the application. As I just showed you, we're going to have the provider section, and then we're going to have the user section, right? So you can create a provider account or a user account, and you are going to have all these features available to you if you're a provider, and this available to you if you are a user. Right. So yeah, this is just to give you a high level overview of the whole platform. But what are you going to learn? We are going to learn a lot. Right. So first of all, we are going to use TypeScript. Apart from that, we are also going to learn Next.js 13.5, all the features that Next.js 13.5 offers. So things like using the app directory, using server components. We're going to learn route grouping. We are also going to learn how simplified data fetching is in Next.js using things like server actions. Alright, so we're going to use Supabase for our database, and Supabase is very cool. It is very, very fast. So yeah, we're going to learn all the CRUD operations, the create or insert, read, update, delete. We are going to also use Supabase for our authentication, right? So the login and then the sign up. So login with email and password. We are also going to look at how to log in with your Google account as well using OAuth. And we are going to also learn something about Supabase called policies. So your tables you are going to create are going to have policies around them, and those policies are what is going to allow you to access the data in those tables. So we are going to learn them. Alright, apart from that, this is the UI library we are going to use, Mantine UI, and it is going to help us build our UI very, very quickly. So we're going to learn things like theming, light and dark themes. We're going to use the colors, typography, and everything. We're going to learn a lot using Mantine. We are also going to look at the styles, the hooks from Mantine. We are going to use a form, dates, carousels to create like sliders. Now the Mantine core is where we are going to use all the components, right? So components like containers, flex, components, boxes, buttons, badges, and a lot of components. These are all going to come from Mantine core, right? So Mantine hooks is when you want to use some hooks. Mantine hooks offers a lot of hooks for you to leverage them. So we are going to use some hooks from Mantine hooks as well. Now the Mantine form is going to help us validate our form fields very easily, and this is for date pickers, date input, and stuff like that. And as I said, this is for sliders. There are also concepts like pagination and responsiveness that Mantine is going to help us do easily. We are going to look at them, and that's not all. We are also going to use other tools to help us build this application professionally. Alright, so we are going to use Cloudinary to store our images. So we are going to learn how we can make use of the Cloudinary API to upload images. Now we are going to use react-leaflet for the map. We are going to use react-toastify for toasts. Now we are also going to use react query for some relevant client-side data fetching. even though we are using Next.js, but then there are certain sections of the application that I only wanted to use client-side data fetching, right? And you'd see what I'm talking about. I mean, there might be different ways to go around it in Next.js 13, but I find this the easiest way, and it is also like another option to show you how to use React query in Next.js 13 as well, right? So yeah, now these are the icon libraries we are going to use. We are going to use React icons and Tabla icons. You can go with one of them if you want. I started using Tabla icons and I got to a point I couldn't find some icons I was looking for, so I just installed React icons. React icons already have a lot of icons, almost all the icons you'd actually get. So if you are using React icons, there might not be the need for Tabla icons. But yeah, for some reason I am using the two of them in this particular project, so that's still fine. That's a lot of tools we are going to be using and learning. So without wasting a lot of time, let's just get started by creating a new Next.js application, installing all these tools, and then start setting up our application. Okay, so we are going to start by creating a new Next.js app. That's going to be the starting point, right? Yeah, so I'm going to bring my terminal here, and I have opened the documentation of all the tools we are going to be using. Right, so whenever we need anything, we will just come to the documentation and then look at how we do what. Right, so that's the best way to actually get what you are looking for faster. Most of the times you can just do a general Google search or Stack Overflow search, but yeah, the documentation, most of the documentation provides everything you would need to be able to get what you are looking for done. And so we are going to get started by creating a new Next.js app, and as you can see, when you come here, the command is actually here, but doing npx create next app at latest is going to create you a new Next.js application with the latest version. Now as you can see, I have also opened the Supabase documentation here. We will come back to this shortly. Mantine UI, we're going to use Cloudinary, react-leaflet, react-query, we have Tabla icons, react icons, and then react-toastify as well. Alright, so let's actually start from here, Next.js. So I copy this and I'm going to paste that here. Alright, so this is going to ask me a few questions about whether I want to use TypeScript, what's the name of my application. So to start with, what is going to be the name of my application? So I'm going to say cargo rentals, because I have a cargo rentals project created already. I'm going to just add 2. Right, and it's going to say, do I want to use TypeScript? Yes. Do you want to use eslint? Yes. Would you like to use Tailwind? I'm not going to use Tailwind here, so I'm going to say no. Would you like to use the src directory? This is not required, it's optional, you can decide to use or not. Most of the time I use it just to organize my folders, so I'm going to say yes for this one. Would you like to use the app router? Yes. And would you like to customize the default import alias? I am going to say yes for this one because it makes your import very nice. Right, and I'm going to keep the default one, at least for now. And this is going to create my Next.js application for me. I'm going to install all the other packages. Going to install Supabase. So if I go to get started, let me click on the documentation actually. Yeah, so if I click on Next.js here, it is going to show me how to install or how to get started with Supabase in Next.js. Alright, so here, this is where I see like the packages, right? So initializing a Next.js app, this is what we just did. And then after you do that, we are going to install these packages as well. So this is a package we install for Next.js. When you go to Mantine here and you go to framework guides, there's Next.js here. You can go through this to see how to install it. Basically, you are going to copy these commands. If you choose npm, you're going to copy these commands and then paste it and install them, and it's going to also show you how to set it up with app router. We are going to go through this very shortly, but yeah, with the installation, this is the only thing you're going to basically need. Right, after initializing the Next.js app, then you install these two. Right, and we are going to look at the setup also. So same with Cloudinary, react-leaflet, react-query, and then the other libraries as well. Alright, so it is done. So I'm just going to say cd cargo rentals 2, and I'm going to open it with VS Code. So I'm going to do code dot, and this is going to open this in VS Code. Let me bring that here, and I'm going to make this quite huge so that you can see. Let me increase the font size. I will use the built-in VS Code terminal, and then I'm going to install all the packages. Let me just close some of these. So this is done. I can close it now. Check the description for all the packages I am installing. Alright, so for Mantine, I'm going to install these packages, right? So Mantine core, Mantine hooks, Mantine form, Mantine dates, and then carousel, and then also I need this for Next.js, right? So if I open the Mantine documentation again, that's how we are going to be doing it. And so as you can see, these are all the packages we have, right? So we have the hooks, the core, the form, dates, and these are different packages. So for example, if I open the documentation for the dates and I want a date input, for example, right? Yeah, it's gonna come from Mantine dates. So this is for choosing a date. So it means I need to install that package, right? Yeah, so that's the reason why I am installing some of these packages. That's the form, the dates, the carousel is actually here. Let's wait for that to finish installing, and then we are going to install the packages for Supabase as well. Alright, that's done. So what packages do we need for Supabase? So let me just clear the terminal. Now for Supabase, these are the two packages we are going to need. So we are going to need the Supabase auth-helpers-nextjs. This is for the authentication, and this is what I showed you. This is the actual Supabase package. So these two packages are what we are going to install. So let me hit enter to install them. Alright, so that's done as well. So next I'm going to install react-query. Alright, so I need it, and it's from stack react-query. Alright, and I'm also using the devtools, the react-query-devtools. So yeah, these are the two packages I'm going to install for react-query. So I'm gonna hit enter. Alright, and after that I am going to install my icon libraries. Right, so Tabler icons and then React icons. I'm also going to install the other libraries as well. So a few more libraries to install. So next-cloudinary for uploading images to Cloudinary using the Cloudinary widgets. and then react-leaflet for maps, react-toastify. We're also using this uuid to generate random unique IDs. So let's install these as well. After this, we are going to install the last set of dependencies, and those are going to be dev dependencies. Alright, so yeah, let's wait for this to finish and then we will install them as well. Alright, so lastly we are going to install our dev dependencies, a few of them. So I'm going to do npm install -- save dev. Alright, so this is the types for the React query, the eslint plugin for the React query, and this is also the TypeScript types for leaflets, same for uuid, and this is a postcss preset for mantine. Right, and this is very useful for our styles because it is going to give us a lot of different functions that are for mantine that we are going to be using. So let me show you the documentation for that quickly. So here, as you can see, mantine post css preset, it provides us several css functions and mixins to help us write styles. So typical example I can show you, the rem and em function. So I can do something like font size and do a function like this and pass it, and this is going to convert this to rem. So I can pass pixel values and this is automatically going to convert the values to rem, which is very useful. Another functions we are going to be using a lot is these functions, light and dark, for our light and dark themes. So a typical use case is here, right? So as you can see, color, when you do light and dark, this is basically a function. The first value is for light theme and then the second value is for dark theme. So you get to write all these in your CSS files instead of actually writing them in the actual TypeScript file or in the template file. So it makes our style very clean and very easy to read as well. So yeah, this is going to help us a lot. So it's the reason why we have to install this post-preset-mantine. You would see that very soon. You see how useful that is very soon. So I'm going to hit enter to install our dev dependencies as well, and these are going to be the libraries, all the libraries we are going to be using. So yeah, it's going to be in the description. You can just copy and paste them, and yeah, after the installation we are going to try and set up our application and then yeah, kick things off now. So let me open package.json and see everything looks good. We are now going to set up all our libraries. So if I open here, inside the SRC we have the app folder, and yeah, we have globals.css. We're going to clear this. We have page.modules.css. We have layout. We have what again, page.tsx, the actual page. So we are going to clean these up and then do the setup ourselves. Before we get started cleaning up our application, there is one thing I want to mention quickly, right? So if I open package.json, as you can see here, Next.js released version 14 just a few days ago, and even though I mentioned that we are going to be building this application in version 13.5, when you initialize your Next.js application with create next app at latest, it is going to use the latest version, and as you can see here, I am on version 14.0.1. That's still fine, and it is not going to have any impact on our application. That's because Next.js mentioned specifically that in this new version there is no change in API. So our application is still going to work exactly the same way. The only thing is that our application is going to run much faster, and also server actions are stable in this version, so we wouldn't need to actually add the like the experimental server action flag inside next config again. So those are just a few things to take note of. I am now using Next.js 14 instead of 13.5 after migrating all the dependencies to 13.5. Just a few days after 14 was released, so when I was creating a new application, I just got version 14. It's still good because there is not a lot of changes with version 14, so our app should run exactly the same way, right? So there's no need to worry about the changes in the versions. That's just by the way. So let's start from page.tsx, right? So I am going to try and remove everything in page.tsx. So let me just bring this down. We are still going to be using CSS modules, so we would leave page.modules.css here, even though we are going to just clear everything. Save it. It means we are going to clear these as well. Alright, we can leave it here for now. We can remove the import, and then we can just say that place some of these empty spaces. We can say that hello next.js 14. So we save this, and then we go to layout.tsx, and then here the title, I'm going to change it to cargo rentals. Right. So the title is going to be cargo rentals, and then the description. So the description is going to say rent cars anywhere, hopping right on. Okay, so I'm not going to be using this font from Next.js. Here we can get rid of this and just have body, and when I save it, everything should look fine. Right. Alright, so if I try to do npm run dev just to run my application, so npm run dev. So if you run this and you run into issues, I think one thing I forgot to mention is if we are using Next.js version 14, make sure you are using the latest version of Node, because Next.js version 14 requires Node.js version 18 and above. Alright, so if you run npm run dev and you run into any issues, for example, it's gonna say something like request is undefined or something like that. I think I had that issue before. Just make sure you update the version of Node and npm on your machine to a latest version, so that that issue will be resolved. Right, so right now if I do, because I updated this, if I do node-v, you'd see that I am on version 20.9.0, right? So yeah, if you go to Node.js, the official website, you can download the new version of Node and just run it. Go through the steps and then update the Node version, and then you can also update npm, and then you will be able to run the app successfully, right? Okay, so now it is saying that the app is running on port 3000 localhost. So I'm going to bring my browser and then try to open it, and let's see that everything is running fine with no issues. Okay, so as you can see here, our app is running fine. So we just wrote hello Next.js 14, and this is showing up here. Even though our page is black, I think that is going to probably come from it's probably going to come from one of our styles. Yeah, maybe globals.css. Yeah, so we have all these styling here. I don't think we need this. We are going to create our own if we need. So we are going to clean all these, but yeah, as you can see, color scheme is dark by default, so that's what it's showing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all these and I am going to clear, and when I clear, I think we should be back to our default light mode. Hello Next.js 14. Okay, so that is looking good. We are going to add one file in the root of our application, and that is going to be for our styling. So as I mentioned, we installed postcss from Mantine, the postcss preset from Mantine, and we need to configure that to work in our application, and it's very easy to do. So the only thing we have to do is to add a file called postcss.config.js inside the root of my application. I am going to add that file here, right? So this file, postcss.config.js, and then the only thing I'm going to add is this, right? So the plugins postcss-preset-mantine, which is basically the package we installed. It's a dev package. So here we add that, and then also to show you that I got this from the Mantine documentation. If I do mantine.dev again, get started, and then we go to styles, there is post css presets here. As you can see, this is what we did, and this is what you should add. So when you create this file, then you add this line, right? And you can start using some of these functions. So yeah, just add that. So guys, whilst we're talking about Mantine, let's now set it up with Next.js. I am going to go back to the documentation again. Let's go to get started, and here, if you want to have a look at the examples, for example, like using it with the app router, there is a template here. You can click on this to look at the template and see how they use it in a real application or in an example application. If you go to framework guide and we go to Next.js, we can see an example here, right? So we've already installed the packages, we've installed postcss, we've already added the plugin that we need. So the next thing is go. So as you can see, this is setting it up with the pages router, that is Next.js version 12. Older versions of Next.js, but then if you go to setup with app router, here we see how the setup looks like. Right. So first of all, we are going to add this, and then we are also going to add the Mantine provider. These are the two components we need from Mantine. So Mantine provider and then the color scheme script. So let's get this. I'm going to copy this from here. You might probably not see it well, so let me just zoom in a bit. I'm gonna copy this, and where I am supposed to add this is inside SRC in app. I can add it in my layout. So here I can add this in the head. So let me add the second one as well. So Mantine provider. So all our children is going to be wrapped in Mantine provider so that we can use the components. So if we try to add the imports now from Mantine core, and we shouldn't also forget to add the styles from Mantine core. So let's add that at the top. Okay, so yep, these are resolved now. And if I save it to test this, so there's a button, and then it's gonna come from Mantine core. So I'll put a button here just to test inside page.tsx, and yeah, as you can see, it's showing up here. Very, very nice. Which means that that is basically all we need to add for our Mantine setup. Alright, very, very simple, very, very straightforward. So we just added these two, imported from Mantine, and inside page we are now able to use the button component which says click me, and then it shows up here. Very, very cool. So which means our Mantine is working, and to also test that our postcss is actually working, let's actually, when I go back to page.tsx, I'm going to enable this, and I'm going to add a class name here, class name, which is going to basically say styles dot let me just say btn, and this is coming from page.module.css. so if I go to page.module.css, I can just say .btn, and then I want to be able to use the postcss function, one of the postcss functions. So if I go back to styles, postcss-preset, and I try to maybe use one of these font size, but instead of font size, I'm just going to say width, and then just going to say 100 pixels. Save it. As you can see, I'm using the rem function here, and then I go back, and let's see if that works. We can inspect and see. So if we inspect, so it says that invalid property rem. Okay, so I think I was running the app before I added the postcss config. Let's actually restart it and see if that's the cause. So I'll just clear this and then do npm run dev again. Okay, so it's running again, started, and I'm going to try and then refresh the page, and let's see if this is going to work. After it refreshes, as you can see here, it looks like it's working now. So if I do the inspect now, as you can see, it does some calculation. You see, I set it to 100 pixels using the rem function, and it does some calculation. And as you can see, 6 rems by variable Mantine scale. However, Mantine does 8 calculation, rem calculation, but this is 100 pixels, I believe. If I try to inspect, yeah, as you can see from the pop-up window, right, 100 by 36, which means it is working. So let me even increase this to like 300, something noticeable, so that we see, and there you go. Right, that is working fine. So our postcss presets with Mantine is also configured correctly, and it is working fine as well. So the last thing I need to add in terms of Mantine setup is these two styles. So I'll go to layout, and I'm going to paste these two styles below the core. And so this is the styles for the carousel and then the dates. Right. So these are the two styles. I want to add them here before I forget, so that if we start using the carousel and dates, we already have the styles here. And I mean, you're going to get all of these from the documentation. So let me open this one more time. So here, if I go to dates, go to getting started, So as you can see, after you do the installation, you just import the styles as well, right? Okay, so we did the same thing for the carousel. Alright, so the carousel styles is also here. So you are going to get everything I am importing or adding in code from the documentation. So that means that we are done with our Mantine setup. We can now use any component, or we can now use any component or any package from Mantine we want to use, and we should be fine with that. We should be good. So let me close all of these. Let me clean this up. Bring this down. Alright, so whilst we are still here, let's create some of the folders we're going to need. So I am going to create it in the src folder. So the first folder I am going to need, as you would know, is going to be called components. So this is where I am going to have all my reusable components created. So I'm also going to create another folder, and I'm gonna call this context. So I'm going to be using some few context for authentication, for theme, for our cars, for our filters as well. So we are going to need that folder, and I am also going to need another folder called features. So this is for a particular feature. Right, so I want to be able to organize components that are not reusable like across, but they are tied to a specific page or a specific feature. So I'm going to be creating them here. Alright, so for example, maybe the hero banner on the home page is only going to be used on the home page. So in this case, it is not going to be a reusable component. Alright, so I am going to create it as a component for the home feature. Alright, so that's how I'm going to be organizing this. Need another folder called hooks. So some custom hooks that I'm going to be creating. And then because we are using TypeScript, I also need the models folder to store our types. And there is going to be some other folders. I would need const for constants that I'm going to be exporting and using in other places. And I am also going to need one more, actually two more. So this is called functions. So let's rename this. Right, so it's called functions, and I need one for actions. These are going to be containing the files for our server actions, right. And this is going to contain like reusable functions. Yeah, so I think these are mainly the main folders we are going to need. If I am missing any folder, I think we would create it along the way. But yeah, this is how I am going to structure my files. Now my pages are going to go here in the app, so we would also look at how to structure that in a bit. But I think we are in a position to start working on the UI for the home page. So lastly, let me clean this readme file a bit. I'm just going to remove everything inside here. Just going to add just one line and say car go rentals 2 actually. So save this, and then I'm going to close this file. And yeah, we are ready to make our first commit and push this and push all the changes we've had at this point into our repository. So I'm going to create my repository and then link it with this, and then I'm going to commit this to the repository so that we can continue with the next section. We are going to end this section here, and we are going to start creating our components and work on the home page in the next session. That is the part 2 of this section. Yeah, thank you, and then I'm going to see you in the next section.